Hey there, Tim here from Rockout Videography again. Do you ever think about tuner pedals and wonder if the cheap ones are any good? If you're looking for a tuner pedal and you're on a tight budget, this is a question you are probably interested in. I recently bought one of the cheapest tuner pedals that I could find on Amazon for about $20 and discovered that there are actually a few very common pedals coming from China right now that are all being advertised and sold by different companies for different prices in this budget category. We're going to briefly review the history of tuners and how their accuracy is measured, talk about some of the different inexpensive designs that are being sold today, take a look at the two different versions of this pedal that I have, look inside them and test them against one of the expensive, often recommended tuner pedals to see how they stand up. Stick around. We're going to dive into this topic so you can decide if one of these cheap tuners is the right choice for you. When I was a little kid, I remember my father showing me how to tune a guitar using this pitch pipe. It has 6 pipes, one for each of the 6 strings on a guitar. You blow each pipe and tune by ear. People used tuning forks and pitch pipes to tune by ear for many years. There have been various designs of electric tuners, starting with the Strobicon in 1936. This is still considered by many people to be the most accurate tuner ever made. The 1970s and early 1980s saw the introduction of small electronic tuners like the Korg WT-10 in 1975 and the Boss TU-12 in 1983. The first electronic tuner pedal was the Boss TU-2, introduced in 1998. There are now more tuner pedal designs out there than any of us can probably keep track of. And like many electronic devices, there are now a wide variety of inexpensive tuner pedals available, most of them coming from China. I had originally planned to simply do a review of this specific tuner pedal. However, when I followed the Amazon link from my purchase to get screen grabs, I discovered that Vivlex is now selling a different tuner pedal. I quickly discovered that there are basically 3 different tuner pedal designs that seem to make up the majority of the offerings coming from various companies on Amazon. The new design that Vivlex is now offering seems to be the most numerous. I realized that the $35 Donner pedals I had bought the kids for Christmas seemed to be the exact same design as the $20 Vivex tuner pedal I'd recently purchased for my home practice rig. If you look at them side by side, it's obvious that although the case colors are different and there are graphics unique to each brand, the pedals seem to be identical. I opened them up so I could look inside, and it appears that the internal components are the same on both pedals as well. I didn't take them completely apart because I'm lazy, but I also didn't think I would really find any differences if I did. So here's what's obviously going on with these cheap tuners. A company or several companies are mass producing a few designs and selling them to other companies who are either ordering them with custom graphics or adding their own after they receive them. These other companies are then selling them on Amazon under their own branding at whatever price they think the market will bear, in this case ranging from around $20 to as much as $35. The most numerous design seems to be the version that Vivlex recently changed to. Now, if you like videos about audio, video, and music production, we would sure appreciate it if you would hit the subscribe and like buttons. It costs you nothing, but it helps us out tremendously. We also have a merch store now where you can purchase nerdy music, sci-fi, fantasy, and geek-related t-shirts and clothing like this guitar-themed t-shirt. So we know where these pedals are coming from and what's going on generally with their distribution. But are they any good? How do you measure that? Also, how do they compare to an expensive tuner like this TC Polytune Mini? It turns out that a tuner's accuracy is measured in cents and semitones. There are 100 cents in a semitone, and a semitone is a half step. So, for example, there are 100 cents between E and F or B and C. Supposedly, the average range of hearing for humans is around 5 cents. But this can vary greatly from person to person, with some people claiming to be able to hear differences as small as 1 or 2 cents. It's also dependent on the frequency, with some people supposedly able to notice very small differences up to 0.5 cents in the upper frequency ranges. Keep all this in mind as we discuss technical specifications. The manual for my version of the Vivlex tuner states that it's accurate to within plus or minus 1 cent and has a tuning frequency range from A at 27.5 Hz to C8 at 4168 Hz. The full manual for my TC Polytune Mini has to be accessed online and states it has a tuning accuracy of plus or minus 0.5 cents and has the same frequency tuning range. So these cheap tuners I have are not as accurate as an expensive tuner like the Polytune Mini, but can you actually tell a difference? I decided to have some fun and hooked the Vivlex up to my Yamaha MX49 keyboard and played some notes to see what would happen. As I played various notes up the keyboard, the tuner and the keyboard both agreed until I got to C4. Surprisingly, the results I got with the TC Polytune Mini were exactly the same, with the tuner being unable to read notes starting with C4 and higher. I'm not sure why these pedals are having trouble reading these high notes from the keyboard, since the specs both claim a frequency range up to C8. If anyone understands the technical issue going on here, let us know in the comments. I am feeding a mono line out signal from the keyboard into the instrument level input of the tuner pedal, with the keyboard's volume turned down really low. I suppose it's possible that this is the source of the problem. That's just an untested theory. I don't really know. Next, I decided to test both pedals with a bass and a guitar. All right, here's the test I've devised. What I've done here is I have put together a little test board, and let's turn this on here real quick. So I'm using my Snail's battery power supply. So I'm going into this AB switcher box right here, which allows me to switch between 2 channels. So channel A is going into the Vivlex tuner, and channel B is going into the Polytune, right? The cables are the same brand and the same length, in case that matters. And the first instrument that we're going to try is my Squier Vintage Modified 70s Jazz Bass. This bass has 19:1 ratio tuners. So theoretically, of all the instruments I own, this is the one that should be the least precise in its tuning with the gears, theoretically. So let's see what happens. Here we are, we're on the mini tune, and we're using a pick, and I'm going to do an open E. Well, that's on. Let's go off and get back to it. See how it jumps around a little bit? Let's go down again and come back up to it. Okay, there we go. Now we'll switch to the TC and see if it's still showing it in tune. It's showing maybe a little sharp, but let's see if we can fine tune that. We'll go down again. And let's see what the other one now says. Right on. So, is it going to be easier to tune an instrument with less precise tuning gears if you're using the more expensive tuner that only has half a cent plus or minus variation? Yeah. But on the other hand, did I get this bass in tune good enough with the other one? Right? That would be the question. All right, let's try something else. Let's try a guitar. All right, now I have a Squier Classic Vibe Telecaster Deluxe. I've got it in the middle position with both pickups and tone and volumes all the way up. Let's see what happens with our tuner with this. All right, here we go. So we're going to tune the open E, and we're low. Now let's see what the Polytune says. All right, let's try the high E. Sorry, going back to the Vivlex. So that one's out, a little low, a little flat. Now let's see what the Polytune says about this one. So as it rings out, it's showing a little bit flat on the Polytune. Let's go back, Vivlex. So, will a more expensive tuner like the Polytune, is it more precise? I would say from this test that, yeah, it's more precise than one of the cheap tuners. That test still doesn't answer the question, is this cheap tuner pedal good enough? And if so, is it good enough for everything or only some things? I decided to conduct another test. I replaced my Polytune on my board with the cheap Vivlex tuner and took it to band practice. I didn't tell anyone I was using a different tuner. Brad has excellent pitch perception and will often notice if someone in the band is slightly out of tune when I don't notice it. I wanted to see if this tuner was good enough for playing in a band with other experienced musicians, especially someone who is probably in that upper sensitivity range and able to hear a difference of less than 5 cents. So, Brad, you have excellent pitch, I've noticed, right? So, was there any issues with my bass it's tuning tonight? Did everything seem the same as always? Was anything out of tune?
Not that I could tell.
Not that you could tell. Okay, Jim, did you hear anything out of tune with my bass tonight?
Nope.
Nope. Judd, everything seem in tune?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, there you have it. If the tuner is good enough for me to use at band practice with other experienced musicians, it's certainly good enough for my own home practice and for my kids to use when jamming with me or their friends. This means it's probably good enough for you to use when practicing at home or playing with other people as well. Now, is there a point in having a good, accurate, quality tuner like this TC Polytune Mini? Sure there is. The Polytune is more accurate. It comes with additional features the cheap tuners don't have, like automatic mono poly modes, alternate tuning modes, a more accurate strobe mode, accurate to within 0.02 cents, and a switchable true bypass mode. If you understand what all of that means and those features are important to you, you will probably want to save up and buy something like the Polytune. I'm certainly not going to sell my two TC Polytune tuners, and for me personally, the increased accuracy is important when I'm involved in recording projects. However, for most people, I think one of these cheap tuners will work just fine for everyday practice, jam sessions, band practice, gigs, and maybe even some recording projects. If all I had was one of these cheap tuners, I wouldn't panic and would probably be able to do most or all of what I want to do on a daily basis. All right, folks, it's time for
the Featured YouTube Artist of the Week! Yay!
This week's featured artist is John Tice. John describes himself as a singer, songwriter, producer, old man skateboarder, and down but not out. John hails from Minnesota, USA, and has an old school country Americana vibe going on. When I listen to John in the car, I'm suddenly back in 1981, riding in the back of my dad's Chevy Blazer, while me and my best friend listen to classic country on an 8-track player on our way to some camping trip. John's band is great, and there are multiple live performances on the channel. John's music is available for streaming, as you would expect, but I have to say I really enjoy the solo acoustic videos he makes at his home studio and posts on his YouTube channel. Let's all go to John's channel, subscribe, watch his videos, hit the like and subscribe buttons, and leave him some comments. Remember, in today's world, it really means a lot to these independent musicians and artists when we support them on platforms like YouTube. Let us know in the comments what you think about tuners, the type you like to use, and if price and quality are important or not. Would you rely on one of these cheap tuners for everyday use? Or do you need something more accurate, like the Polytune? We appreciate everyone who has taken time in the last few months to subscribe, like, and comment on the videos. We've had some interesting and informative discussions on there, and we're always learning from viewers like you. Until the next video, have a great day.